All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, I'm Olivia. I work on the Spectora marketing team, and we're so excited to put on this webinar today, Mastering Spectora Efficient On-Site Reporting. Before I introduce our other presenters and get into the actual webinar, I just want to take care of a few business things. First and foremost, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat button. That's where we will want you to write in if for whatever reason you're having any technical difficulties, if you can't hear us, if you have any issues, you can write that in the chat. As always with our webinars, we are going to end with Q&A. So if you have any questions that come up during the webinar, or if you want to save them to after, we ask that you put those in those little Q&A box. That makes it easier for us to sort through and answer. So Q&A box for questions, chat for anything else you might need to communicate to us during the webinar. That said, we will get to questions at the end. So if you ask a question and we're not answering it, we're saving it until the end of the webinar. If for whatever reason we run out of time with questions, you're always free to contact us afterwards if we don't get to yours live on the webinar. With that said, I am so excited to jump into it. So today with me, you're in great hands. We have Megan, a Spectora product manager, who will be taking you through most of this webinar. She is an expert on all things mobile app and just one of the most fantastic people I know. So I'm so excited for her to share some tips about how you can best use the Spectora mobile app and get the most out of it. So I got Megan here, and then we actually have guest presenter Chris Cochran. If you guys have never met Chris, he is fantastic, and he is one of our Spectora inspectors. So great at his job, and he's going to share his time-saving tips and some of how he gets the most out of the Spectora app and how he becomes really efficient with on-site inspections. So I'm very happy to be joined by both of them today, and we're going to give a great webinar for you. Before we get into that, and I pass it off to the real experts here, I do just want to give a little intro on why efficient on-site reporting is so important to us and why this webinar is, in my opinion, one of the most important ones we've ever done. So aside from the obvious, which is that everyone wants to save time on inspections, we built Spectora to be the most time-saving platform, and it's because time is really powerful. If you can save some time in your week and from your inspections by getting a little bit more efficient on-site, you can use that to do a lot of important things. So let's talk about the fact that we hear from inspectors, and I'm sure this is not the audience I need to tell this to because y'all are already on Spectora, but folks who switch to Spectora, just by switching, save about 1 hour per inspection. And when I tell people that number, sometimes people are surprised, but like, yes, really, that's about the average. We hear folks saving even more than that. And 1 hour per inspection is obviously great. It sounds great, but I just want to scale that up a little bit and zoom out. So let's say, for example, you as an inspector, if you do 3 inspections per week and you're saving 1 hour an inspection, you're saving 3 hours per week. So that's great time. That's time you can work on your business. 3 hours, totally enough to write and publish a blog article, film some social media videos, work on other areas of your business, or that's 3 hours you get back from your family. If we scale that up a little bit, that's about 12 hours per month. So if you're saving an hour per inspection, that is a ton of time you're saving that you can use to either make working on your business a bigger priority, or again, just spending time with your family, spending time on your hobbies, doing whatever you love. So if we look at a whole year and you're saving about 1 hour per inspection, that's 156 hours per year. And that time is really powerful. And again, I don't need to hammer this point home too much, but that's why we care so much about this at Spectora. That's why we want to teach everyone here today how you can get even more out of the Spectora app, making sure you all know the ways you're using it efficiently. And then with Chris here, I'm really excited to give some tips and have an actual inspector, because we are not actual inspectors here today, other than Chris, some tips on how you can speed up your on-site writing. One thing I do want to say, because whenever we talk about on-site report writing getting more efficient, I always hear an inspector say, well, I actually like to finish my reports on home. I'm never going to finish my reports on site. Why do I need to be more efficient? And I think even if you're not planning on completing and finishing every single report on site, efficiency is key because you can get through your inspections faster. You can add another inspection into your day. And these are all things that are going to help you grow your business, whether you're staying as a solo and just adding more inspections. into your schedule, able to spend more time on marketing, or whether you want to grow and scale and become a multi and have more time to focus on other areas of your business. Even if you're not looking to finish reports on site, saving time will still be beneficial. So with that said, just want to give a little preview on what we're covering today. So I'm about to pass this off to Chris Cochran, who will give you all of his tips for efficient on-site reporting. Then again, Megan will talk through utilizing the Spectora mobile app, and we'll end before Q&A with just a few updates on what the Spectora team is working on, and answering some frequently asked questions we hear all the time about the mobile app. So with that said, introducing Chris. Chris, I'll let you hop on and introduce yourself and pass it off to you to give your tips for how every inspector here can report on site a little bit more efficiently.
Thanks, appreciate it. Am I coming through okay? Because it looks like I'm a bit laggy here.
I'm hearing you great, Chris. Thanks for checking though. And if anyone else is having issues hearing Chris, let us know.
Okay, yeah, so thanks. Hey, real quick, Chris Cochran, I've been an inspector for about 8 years. I started and cut my teeth in northern Arkansas, started a multi-inspector company up there, got really, really busy during especially the pandemic. Eventually shut it down. I ended up moving to Florida and started another business in Florida and just been, I think, plentifully busy down here. And so, as an inspector, I started with Spectora. And little did I know that it was actually a really young company back in 2017 when I came on board. And so Spectora is really all I know. But what I know is that even though I know it's quicker and faster than some other softwares out there, I always looked for ways that I can improve and speed up my inspections on site because I believe in trying to better your operations to reduce on-site reporting. And I never really was a go back home and work on your report type guy. I know that's old school. And I know there are still people that may still do that kind of inspection, but I would implore everybody to make sure they take full advantage of the Spectora software and finish as much as they possibly can on site. So I will say that there is four tips here specifically that we're going to get into. The first is inspect by search. And there's been a big debate over the years, my software has less clicks than your software or whatever it is. But I think if you optimize your software and inspect by search, it removes the click debate completely. And what do I mean by that? So when I go into, let's just say I'm doing the exterior micro inspection. So I'm doing up close on the exterior. When I'm walking around, I am not coming out of my child sections and then having to click out and then click back in. What I do is I just literally click the search button. I put in the title of the defect that I'm trying to find and it comes up. That's it. I'm actually inside of whatever section I was working on and I stay in that area pretty much the entire time as I'm going around. There are times I come out, like if I'm going to put in the condensing unit for the HVAC portion, I will come out and add that in there. But as far as the defects and such, I am doing the search. I don't click around my report a lot. I actually don't click around much at all during my report. And I've even gotten better lately of even searching for the information narratives as well. And so I used to do it just for the defects. Now I do it almost report wide. So when I'm testing the PSI of the pressure of the water, I don't even go back out and go to the water distribution section. I will just go to search. I will click off defect. I will click on the info. I will type in PSI. Boom, my PSI narrative comes up. I select it. I put in my pictures of the gauge and I'm done. I'm moving on and I'm staying in that child section. So it is extremely fast and efficient, and it removes the whole click debate altogether. So I implore people to really consider getting good at doing the inspect by search. I really do. But an important component of the inspect by search is actually optimizing your titles. Okay, and I specifically have one here that I'm going to talk about. So in the way my template is set up, I have doors and windows, and I have doors and windows. And under my door section, I have exterior doors and interior doors. And the reason I do that is because those doors are actually very different. Obviously, you don't have weather strips on interior doors and so forth. So what I do is, so if I'm doing an inspection in, say, in a bedroom, if I have a defect on that door, I'm going to go into my search and I'm going to type IN space DO space whatever the defect is. And it literally is filtering out everything. And at that point, showing the few interior door defects that I have. And I haven't gotten out of that section. I'm still in the child section. I'm not clicking back out to the parent and then going back in. And so by optimizing your titles, you can weed out a lot of defects that are not relevant to whatever it is you're searching for. Because there's a lot of like defects, like for example, if you find failed seals on a window versus failed seals on a door that has glass in it, they're very like defect. They're both fogged, but they're two different defects. And so if I'm typing WI window and fail, FA is how I label it, however you label it, it's automatically just filtering that out super quick and I can select it. So optimizing your titles and making them so that you can easily break out, what is the item that you're looking at? It's a door, but it's an interior door. And then what is the defect? And then boom, you're going to get that. So optimizing your titles is a very important component of the inspect by search concept that I'm talking about. Okay, I kind of jumped to optimize titles. That kind of has to do with the search, but let's go back to inspect by system versus room by room. I know there's, this is also a big debate amongst the inspectors. And I know there's a lot of old school people that are like, no, I'm room by room. I've always been room by room. The bottom line is it is absolutely undebatable that you are going to have a much longer report and there's going to be a lot of duplication doing a room by room versus a system inspection. A lot of people will do a hybrid, I've noticed, and even I do a hybrid. So I inspect by systems. So I'm doing the electrical systems. I'm doing the HVAC systems. I'm doing, the plumbing. And so I'm breaking out by those systems, but yet I do have a garage section. So I am technically doing a room in the garage, and some people have a kitchen section, and I totally get it. So that's a hybrid system, but that's not the same as having a complete section for room 1, complete section for room 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's just very redundant. And so I mentor people on the side and try to help fellow inspectors out, be faster and so forth. And the first thing that I tell them besides inspect by search is inspect by system. So basically, instead of having a room with all these defective items, so now you have 5 different sections with, let's pick out a defect, ungrounded receptacles or whatever. Now you just have under the electrical system, ungrounded receptacles, and you list the rooms that had those receptacles. So it's one defect. And because think about it, if you're an agent and you're getting a report from an inspector and they have to go and figure out what all the rooms were and all the defects in all those different rooms, it's cumbersome. I wouldn't want to be the agent that gets that. But now you have, you get a report from an inspector that has, a damaged receptacle in this room, and this room, kitchen, bedroom, and the garage. They know, okay, we got to go fix those receptacles, and here's where they're at. And that's it, they're done. So it's very quick to get at the information, and it's just more optimized. Also, you're just not filling out as many sections. You're not having to jump around. Of course, if you inspect by search, you won't have that problem anyways. But so that's that. So I just, if you've been a room by room guy, take a look at doing an inspect by system. I think it'll help improve your flow, stop redundancy, and make it quicker on site. The last thing is the inspection flow. This is something I've really pushed for a few close guys that I've mentored on the side, and how your flow goes when you're on site is critical. And one specific example I'm going to give you, and I think it explains it pretty detailed. When you go into a room, okay, and you're inspecting a room, a lot of people will go in, they'll test the door, okay, and then the door's binding or whatever. And then you take a picture and you put it in the report, doors binding. And then you go to the closet and the hardware's missing. And okay, and then you take a picture and the hardware's missing. And then you go test the window and the window is failed seal or fogged or whatever. And then you put that in there in the report. If you'll notice, you're literally in your report over and over and over again. Um, what I have done recently, I'd say within the past year and a half, is I've optimized my flow. So what I'll do is I'll go into a room, and I'm not saying you have to inspect in this order. The order doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to get that apart across. I'm just trying to say, do your inspection in that room, then bring up your phone and put in all your defects and your information if you have info for the room. So I go into a room, I test the doors, the main door, and then the closet doors. Then I'll test the windows. Then I'll do all the receptacles. Then I'll do the ceiling fan. Then of course I'm looking at the floor coverings, the walls, the ceiling, and so forth. After and some of you may do your pictures in the report. That's a discussion for a whole nother day. But I would suggest that the way I do it is I take my pictures of all my defects, okay, as I'm going through and doing this testing, and then I open up my report and I go and I search, okay, door DO, interior door BI binding, and it comes up, boom, I select it, and then I put in my picture that I took of the door binding. Then I go to the closet door, and I do CL space DO, and it's already filtering out. I'm already down to closet doors at that point, and I don't even have to put, the defect. And then I put the picture of the missing or damaged hardware. And then I go to the window and I'm typing WI, so I'm searching, and it's so much quicker. And I'm blowing through the room and getting all these defects in there. So yeah, that's pretty much how I do. And those are actually four tips if you have the optimized titles that I think will absolutely help you on site just flow a lot better as you're going through and doing these inspections. And, Inspectora, the software itself, by doing it on site versus going home and building it, which is just, no, Spectora is not designed like that. Doing these tips that I do in inspect by search, inspect by system, and your flow, you will knock off, I guarantee you, at least another 15 or 20 minutes, if not more, and when you get really good at it. So yeah, so that's it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Chris, but that's absolutely wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing. I do want to point everyone towards a webinar Chris recently did. Is the Spectora mobile app worth it? It's an excellent webinar, and Chris really breaks down using the Spectora mobile app as well. So if you're dying for more after this webinar, go watch that. We'll link it when we send out the recording of this to everyone who's attending. Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about InspectorTV and what you're doing with that?
Yeah, thanks. So like I said, I've been mentoring inspectors on the side. I've also been a part of a few collabs, been a part of a few groups as well. I just love the inspection world, and I love helping other inspectors. I really do. Like, I get amped up about it. And I'm always looking for ways to grow and better and get better at your job and everything. And so I've created something called Inspector TV. It's a young fledgling channel that I hope to beef up with a lot more great videos and great content for inspectors. And so that's Inspector TV, the YouTube channel. Like I said, it's just starting out, and I plan to get more content on there. I also have a website called InspectorTV+.com, and right now there's a guide there that you can download for free, and it basically has some of these items I've talked about, the ways to get better and faster on site. But there's also a few more tips on there. So if you're interested in something like that, there'll be more stuff to come out, and more help for inspectors, and that'll just grow over time. So if you want to get more information about some of the things I've talked about here and future stuff, your support would be much appreciated. It would amp me up to do more content.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. And I really appreciate you coming on here today. Chris will be around for the Q&A. So if you have questions for him specifically, you can still pop them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. I do just want to say, before I pass this on to Megan and we get into the Spectora app specifically, I've heard that our chat might not be working. So if you're having any technical difficulties, anything, that can all go in the Q&A box. Sorry about that, everyone. With that said, Megan, shall we go ahead and dive into how to use the Spectora app to save even more time than you're probably saving right now?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Olivia.
Of course. Yeah. So I think we just want to start with a bit of a disclaimer. That report efficiency is something that's gained over time. And Megan, I don't know if you want to say anything else about this, but basically this is what Chris just talked about, like building these habits and figuring out different ways to inspect. Did you want to say anything else here about this disclaimer?
No, that was basically it. I just want people to know if you're getting into the game, I know it can feel really frustrating and disheartening, and you just want an easy button to immediately be inspecting like someone who's been doing it for years. And I would want that too. But I think a lot of it's taking time, really exploring the app, even if you're at home and you can click through and get a better feel for the buttons. All these different things help and just really optimizing what your report looks like. So I think Chris gave a lot of really good tips there, but it's just something I wanted to highlight as an important thing for inspectors to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we mentioned this here, but like finding your template as well, that's obviously huge. So yeah, with that said, though, we will get into the mobile app because there's some exciting features that we have and ways that you can save time that we want to make sure all of our inspectors know about it so they're really getting the most out of the product. So with that, first up, Megan, do you want to talk a little bit about how report navigation can help inspectors speed up their time using the app?
Yeah, of course. So these are some of these are just little tips that I think can really help speed things along. So there's a few different buttons you should know about when you're navigating through the app. So on the bottom there, you can see that there are three icons I've circled. One is a home button, one has a little list icon, and one is next. So the home button, it takes you exactly where you'd imagine. It just takes you back to the inspection details page. Let's say you're switching through reports, so you're doing like a wind mitigation and a general inspection or something like that. That's a good way just to be very easily get back to that page. Same with syncing, you can very easily get back through that. The second one is that list icon. So that takes you back one page. So let's say you went into the cooling system information, you want to get back to cooling, you click that list icon, it moves you back to that one page without you having to move back. For iPhone users too, if you just swipe left to right on your phone, it actually takes you back a page too. So if anyone doesn't know that, that's just a little thing you can do on your phone. The last one there is this little arrow button in the bottom right corner. That just takes you between items. So if you are clicking through things, just checking a report, that's a really good way to move through without having to click back to the section icon. And again, this is something that I think everything about inspecting is about removing clicks and reducing that. So a lot of these are going to be ways to just save yourself a few clicks, and those really add up over time.
Wonderful. And I think we should just get this out of the way before we dive deep more. Megan, can you talk a little bit about how a lot of these, or which ones of these are in the V10 mobile app versus the legacy mobile app, just before we dive into the rest of this?
Excellent question. So the bottom two buttons, the home and the little icons, the little list icon, those are V10 only. And then the next button is in both V10 and legacy. So a lot of these I'll highlight, thank you, which ones are V10 in the future. A lot of these are in both apps. Some of them are V10 specific, and I'll make sure those are highlighted. I appreciate that, Olivia.
Yeah, of course. So, and that for everyone watching right now, if you see something and you're like, I have never seen that button before, actually, highly encourage you to try out the V10 app, and we'll get through updates and why people should feel pretty confident near the end of this. But yeah. So next up, let's talk a little bit about global search. I know Chris already touched on this a bit, but Megan, is there anything else you wanted to add here about global search?
Yeah, of course. So Chris did a great job highlighting global search. I think it's an awesome way to use your app. Some people even create like cheat codes where they type in 3 letters and they know that will bring up certain comments. It's a really helpful tool. I think that there's two other uses that we can talk about for global search. So we have a feature where you can flag comments. So let's say you need to go back and add something. So you can say, I need to add a photo here. I need to add more details. I need to update something when I'm done with the client on site. You can use global search to find all of your flag comments or just some, or also, you can find all your incomplete comments. So let's say you have completion required to publish your report. If you're on site and you're like, oh, I can't figure out which comment's actually holding me up, you can check on incomplete and that will pull up the different comments in your reports that you need to finish, which are just your informational comments that you need to finish before you go back. So I think the biggest use, like Chris said, is just going through those defects, speeding up your report, making sure you're not then your whole day toggling through your different sections. But then there's those other tips too. And the next one actually has some settings too for it.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
All right, perfect. Yeah, here, let's talk about global search settings.
Yeah, of course. So basically you can optimize your global search to work better for you. So you have options for title only and then also title and text. So you can choose if the search hits kind of a smaller amount of your title or your comment or more of your comment. So title and text will give you a little bit more answers, a little bit more range, but title will help you get those results more tailored in and just to a smaller number. There's also always search the entire report. So there's a button that's checked that says, search the entire report or search each section. If you have always searched the entire report, that little checkbox will always be on by default, and it will essentially allow it so regardless of where you're at in the report, it will always search everything in your comments so you don't have to jump to those sections. If you don't have that on, it will search in the section or in the item you're in, only pulling up those comments. So that's a good way to have that pulled up. Last one is, oh, sorry.
Nope, I didn't mean to cut you off for it.
No, I just said there's also a search result limiter. If you have like a really big template, it can help speed up that global search process if you just limit that to like 50 results or something along those lines.
Well, great. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, as we've talked about, like global search is a big one here for time saving and just moving through the app more efficiently. Next, let's get into auto annotating and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So auto-annotate is one of those things, again, it's a setting that we offer. It's a good way to just save yourself time as you navigate through the app. So you have two options for auto-annotate. One is, actually three technically. One is you don't have auto-annotate at all. When you add photos, the annotator doesn't pop up. You click into the comment, you choose which ones you want to annotate, which is just adding those like circles, arrows, all that stuff to your photos. On V10, you can also add text to those photos so you can write on them directly. With the auto annotate too, then you have two other options, which is all comments and then defects only. So all comments means if you're taking an informational photo, that's going to pop up the annotator right after. If you're taking any kind of limitation photo, same thing. For defects only, it just means it'll only show for defects. I know a lot of inspectors really only add those annotations for defects because you're trying to circle the defect in question, show the homeowners more what's happening. So I think those can be really, again, good ways just to save yourself some clicks.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And you can see that on the right there. Also, if any of you all have any issues getting set up with this or starting with this, our chat bubble is always available to help you figure that out. So just want to highlight that there. Next, let's talk about camera options. And in my opinion, this is one of the most exciting ones and something I've just heard great feedback, especially in the V10 app. So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about camera options and how that can make the report writing process a bit more efficient on site?
Yeah, of course. So there are three camera options that we have, and all are available on both V10 and Legacy. For V10, one of those is on by default, and you can turn on the other, sorry, not for V10, for Legacy. One of those is available, which is a single shot camera by default, and you can turn on rapid fire in settings. For V10, both are available by default. So I just want to give you a little bit of rundown of what each entails. So the plus photos button is your phone's native camera. It brings up just whatever you bring up when you bring up your phone, it brings up that camera and it has all the capabilities of that. So that means it has all your lenses, all your aspect ratio, everything in that you have in your camera. Unfortunately, is a little bit limited because iOS and Android don't allow us to take multiple photos with that. So that's why it's called the single shot camera. You can take one photo at a time within that native specification. The next one is Plus Photos, which is our rapid fire camera. So this is a rapid fire plugin that we have created. And because of that, it is a little bit different than your native camera, but it has a lot of the same capabilities, especially on V10. So you can take as many photos as you want on the rapid fire camera. And then you also on V10 on iOS can change lenses. So you can use your 0.5 lens, you can use your 3x lens, whatever that looks like. I know the 0.5 is really helpful, especially when you're in a tight space like a crawl space. I've heard that's really helpful. And then you also can update your aspect ratio using the rapid fire on V10. So basically you can set your photos to like 1:1, so make it a square or make it a bigger one. So basically allows you to ensure that your photos are all consistent sizes and that they all match regardless of where you're adding them from. If you're adding them from single shot rapid fire, you can always set that. The bonus camera, which is what I call the gallery camera or the CYA camera, is basically a camera in the bottom right corner of both apps. You can turn it on and off for Legacy. It's on by default for V10. And that's just a camera that you can use to save photos directly to your gallery. So those photos do not go in the report at all, but when you take them, it just goes right in your camera roll. So then if later a realtor is like, hey, did you lock the door? Did you follow this thing? Did you complete this task? You can at least pull that up and say, hey, here's record of it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Megan. That's wonderful. And I think this is an important one because on the sign up form, I saw a lot of y'all asking, why can't I take multiple photos at once? So very excited to tell you that, like Megan just walked through here, you can, which is exciting. Let's talk about auto-sync. And this is specifically team inspecting and for maybe multi-inspector companies. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this one, Megan.
Yeah, of course. So auto-sync is a feature with V10 only. There is a setting in the Legacy app too, where you can choose what your sync cadence is actually. So you could set it to every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, you can sync. So there is an option that's similar on Legacy too. But auto sync is something that we've added with V10, which just basically means that your app is syncing while you're inspecting. Essentially, what this can do is it can help with a lot of different functions in the app. I especially recommend it for team inspections. So when you're on site with someone, you can quickly see exactly what they're doing as they do it. And you can see that they're, oh, hey, they added this comment. I'm going to add to this comment, or they completed my section, whatever that looks like, you can really quickly see that. We've also heard really great things about training with this. So if you're, let's say, on another site, if you're at home, you can actually see what your inspector is doing live on site. So if you've been new hire, you can watch them go through the app. And again, as they're making those changes, everything's going up there so you can watch it live and make sure that everything's kind of kosher and working the way you want. So that's something that I really recommend if you're someone who is in a multi-inspection, or if you're just someone who doesn't want to spend that time syncing at the end. I know that battery is a concern for people. So it depends on what you want there. I think they can obviously increase battery drain, but it's something that I think is worthwhile in definitely situations like these.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. This is an exciting one that we can go through, and you even got a little GIF here that shows it. But let's talk about floating defects in the V10 app too.
Yeah, of course. So this isn't really as much of a time-saving tip as just a feature I wanted to highlight that we added recently. So essentially on V10, when you go into a section, you go through and you check on a defect comment. So let's say you scroll down to the very bottom of your list and you check on a certain comment. Let's say you have to go back and edit that comment again. When you click back in, we move that comment up to the top of the list. So then you can easily see where that comment was. So you can go through and edit it without having to scroll down to the bottom again. You can find it really easily and just generally make those a lot more simple. So that's something, again, we've added that. It does actually preserve the order of your comments. So even if you check one and then the other, it will show, the first one that you checked will show on top of the list, but in the report, the client will see it in the order you've got set in your template. So it preserves order. It doesn't change anything to the customer. It just helps you more easily navigate to that.
Wonderful. Yeah. And even though that's not like a specifically time-saving tip, those are some of the things we've heard very positive things about from inspectors using it, just streamlining their report writing process and making the whole thing easier. So I think those are the tips we wanted to run through, but we also wanted to answer some frequently asked questions that we got from the sign up form before we get into a full Q&A. So one question we got a lot, and Megan, you just touched on this a little bit, but battery efficiency. Inspectors asking like, how do I make sure I can keep the battery efficient as I'm on site in an inspection, not dealing with the battery dying? Do you have any tips to help inspectors with that?
Yeah, of course. So I think I've got 2 tips for that within the V10 app. Specifically, we have 2, which is dark mode is the first one. It's a setting in your app. So if you go to settings in V10, you scroll down to the very bottom, there's a setting that gives you light mode or dark mode. That can help preserve battery and also help if you're in some sort of like dark area. Like I know people have talked about getting blinded by their light in, again, a crawl space or something. So it's also just like a nice visual thing, but it also can help reduce the battery strain. I also would recommend turning off auto sync if that's a really big concern for you. And then the last one is just making sure you have a modern device. Try to do things that are like generally good to preserve your battery, closing out other apps, not using it while it's charging. There's a lot of things you can do just in your day-to-day life to help your phone keep that battery more. So I would just make sure that you're also taking those tips. There's setting in both Apple and Android also see where your battery efficiency is at. So you can take a peek at that and see like, hey, is it holding 90% of its charge still? Is it holding 10% of its charge still? Just to make sure that's also working for you in your day-to-day.
Can I jump in and add to that, Olivia?
Yes, please do, Chris. I'd love that.
Okay. So hands down, the 3 things that I know that absolutely just save my battery all day. And I mean, literally, we're talking 30% or more of savings as I'm on site. Number 1, turn off your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth. That is absolutely going to save your power like you can't even imagine. Number 2, and you have up there, but I want to reiterate, close all your apps in the background. So nothing's refreshing in the background. That's another huge battery saver. And then I don't know about Android, but on iPhone, it has a battery saver selection. Select that and turn the battery saver selection on. Those 3 things will, it's a game changer if you do those 3 things, at least from what I'm seeing in the field.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. I really appreciate it. Those are great tips. Cool. The next thing we wanted to cover in a question we got a lot is actually what's the difference between V10 and the legacy app? So I don't know how many of you on here have tried out V10, how many of you are still fully using legacy, but it's something that we get asked a lot. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Megan, and the differences and the similarities actually between the two?
Yeah, of course. And I also should start. I realized that I didn't ever explain what V10 is. So for anyone who does not know, which we've been talking about for a while, so I don't know if that's going to be relevant, but V10 is our rebuilt mobile app. So basically, it's the version 9 of the app that you've used for years that's just rebuilt on newer technology, built to last and built just to stand the test of time because the V9 app, as much as we loved it, was just built on technology that we knew wasn't going to keep up with people. It was not going to be something that we could fix to the level we want to, and that's what V10 is. So we call V10, I wrote here, it's an evolution, not a revolution, which is basically, it's the same app, with the same flow with a few feature tweaks, and it's something that we're really excited to build on in the future. So Chris made a really good video, I think that was linked in there, that's 10 differences between the apps. So you have things like dark mode, floating comments, additional camera, additional navigation. There are some different features, but the biggest things, it's just built to last, and it's going to have that more modern experience and more modern options. I think that's the biggest difference. I don't want people going into it thinking they have to redo their whole flow, relearn everything about the app. When they switch, it's something that we really want to feel very similar to the old app, but with the possibility, or not the possibility, the insurance of it lasting forever, and then also be able to be worked on and innovated in a much better.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think the phrasing of it's an evolution, not a revolution is the perfect way to put it because it shouldn't feel like you're getting into a completely different app. It should just feel like the legacy app, but ideally better. So let's get into a question we get a lot as well, both for this webinar sign up form, but why isn't V10 the default right now? So if anyone's hearing of V10 for the first time, let's talk about why that is.
Yeah, of course. So V10 has been something obviously we've been working on for a while. And our stance on it is that we want to make sure it's absolutely an excellent experience for inspectors across the board before we make that push. So we've been doing a ton of fixes, a ton of work. We'll go through our mobile team after this, but we've basically been doing everything we can on our end to ensure that the app is going to be excellent. That includes both the web editor, the app, just the entire reporting experience. So we aren't comfortable making that push until we're completely confident. I think we're getting a lot closer to that. We can go into this later, but we have a lot of different, we have a ton of volume going through the V10 app at this point, and we have a ton of users on that. But I really want to make sure that we're feeling absolutely confident before we make that push. And again, when we do make that push, it's going to be something users have plenty of warning on, you'll have months to figure out the transition, get information, try that out, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to be a immediate move, but we just want to make sure that we're really ensuring our customers are in the best place possible when we make that switch.
Yeah, thank you for that, Megan. And I think you just touched on our last point here. And the last question we got asked is how has it changed and improved? We are constantly iterating on the V10 app and releasing updates. We're about to talk about kind of what we're working on the Spectora backend and really how many hands are on this full time. But Megan and her team of wonderful developers that she works with are pushing out many, many updates. So it is always improving. And we're always dedicating so much of our resources to making it the best we can be because we do understand like this is the product and the reason why you all are at Spectora, of course. So with that said, let's jump into a little bit about our mobile app team and who's actually working on this. So we have wonderful developers, and Megan, I don't know if you just want to give a little intro and some context here about our team.
Yeah, of course. So we have a whole team of developers working on V10. I am the product manager for that, which is why I'm here, but we have excellent people who are on it. So we have two of our excellent mobile developers, Gabriel and Danilo here. They are doing a ton of work on the mobile app, just making sure that's efficient, it's quick, it's really interesting. They both are just excellent developers, and I'm really glad I get to work with them. Second, we've got 3 web developers. So we've got Gustavo, Santiago, and Alex. They are all 3 working on the web editor right now. So I know it feels like a lot of resource on the web editor, but frankly, we felt like the web editor needed a lot of resources just to make sure it's getting really up to that level that we feel like it needs to be. So they're working on syncing, efficiency, UX, bugs, just generally making it a much smoother experience this quarter. And I'm really excited for the work we've done so far. Lastly, we have Alex, or not Alex Alfonso, who is our QA person on mobile. The QA team kind of switches around. So we also have another person named Barker who's doing stuff. And then our QA lead, Courtney, helps too. But he's the one who's testing the app, making sure things are running really smoothly, checking for releases, just generally making sure we're releasing as few issues as possible and that the releases are very high quality. But yeah,
thank you. Realized you all probably don't see a lot of who is actually working on the app day to day, so we wanted to give that introduction. I think it's really important to provide context about this team and how much we really are focusing in on this. So as Megan just said, we do have a whole pod focused on both the app and the web editor. And do you want to talk just a little bit about how the team has grown even just in the last half year?
Yeah, of course. So our web team and our mobile team have more than doubled on V10. We really want to make sure that we're just putting all the resources we can towards this. And so we're putting in a ton of more people, a ton more research, all those kind of things. I do think that maybe our releases have slowed a little bit, but I'm very excited about what we've been working on. We've been working on some larger infrastructure changes, some improvements, and generally just some fixes that are coming out. One of our fixes coming out, we saw a 9% or a 9 times memory decrease on Android for the next fix that's coming out, which I'm really excited for, which can help with a ton of things like smoothness of experience, speed, all those different stuff. So I feel like we're going to be doing a lot of stuff that's awesome. And this is kind of gets us into what we're up to. So
Yeah,
what we're
absolutely.
up to, oh, sorry.
No, please walk them through it because I think it's exciting and probably really important for you all to know what we're focusing on. So yeah, if you want to walk through this, Megan, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, my team is solely focused on V10. So the first thing in that is the web editor. We are improving the syncing to make sure it's faster, it's efficient, and it's reliable. Right now, that's not something that we can necessarily rely on. So we're making sure that just happens immediately. All the data still gets up there, but it can take a little bit right now. So that's something we're working on. We also want to make it feel smoother. So we have our lovely designer, Jeff, who has done a V1 of the web editor with new UX, just a little bit easier. So we're going to be removing that clunk and making it just feel much smoother. We also are improving the speed of loading, speed of general use, and then bugs. And we're going to be seeing what we can do to also innovate there, like adding a better global search to the web. We know that the search on the web doesn't have all the capabilities of the app. So that's something we're looking at. A lot of different stuff with re-inspections. That's on what we're up next to. But yeah, that's everything for the web side. The next one is on the app side. Ooh.
Apologies.
Oh, good. The app side, we're working again, like I mentioned, on performance. We are working on general bug fixes and improvements there. And then we're also working on the photo annotation experience, just making sure that's very smooth. It works really well. It's something that you can very much rely on. So our main focus is there again, just continuing with performance. Yeah, and then we can go into the next one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. So yeah, I'll let Megan share here as well, but this is a little bit about what's up next, what we're working on and looking at.
Perfect. All right, so what's next? So basically, right now, like I mentioned, we're focusing on stability and performance, just making sure of an app we can absolutely rely on, but we're really excited to be able to build more innovative tools to allow you to save time on site with even more features. So we had someone ask in the chat about multiple choice defect comments. That's definitely something we're looking at. So just adding the option for someone to check multiple in there. I know Chris does something interesting where he drags comments from informational into defects that have multiple choice in them. And then you can fill those out on sites that can also save time. But basically, we are looking to add that in a feature. We also have re-inspection improvements, like I mentioned, original photos on the app, ability to report new defects, all these things that we know need to be improved. We're also get conditional logic on the app. So things like, if I check this comment, it should check on these 3. Like if I check on tankless water heater, I know I'm going to have to check on these 4 other comments. I think that could be a huge time saver. Last thing we're looking at is improved annotating camera capabilities. We really want to make sure our annotating experience is just top notch, and so is our cameras. We know that the photos are so important for inspectors. We're looking at so much more, but this is kind of what we're looking at for the future for innovating on the app and actually making it just like the next level experience where it really feels like a huge step up for you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Megan. Such great information. I see we have 40 something questions and we'll probably get more. So I'm just going to run through this end of this very quickly. For everyone asking, because we get this question every time we do a webinar, yes, this webinar will be recorded. You can find it along with so many other videos, all of our past webinars and resources on Spectora Academy. And specifically in the Growth Hub, we have so many resources to help any inspectors who are looking to get better at their marketing for business growth. Some of the best episodes of the Spectora Spotlight. So I don't need to run through all of that and give a really in-depth overview, but that's where you can find the recording of this webinar. We'll also email the link out to you so you don't have to go searching for it, but just want to highlight that. With that said, let us get into the Q&A. Wonderful.
All right. Hey
Great.
guys,
Okay.
James here. I'll be doing the Q&A. Lots of good questions. So we'll be working through, probably won't get through all of them, but we'll do our best. So Jameson starts out asking, is there a more efficient way to log several issues under one section of a report? For example, there are 10 things I find wrong with an electrical panel, then roof, then foundation, etc. Is there a quicker way to log this into one comment, or do I have to do everything one by one? In our area of Massachusetts, we have very old houses, which typically have lots of things to log: roof, electrical, foundations, etc. Just looking for a quicker and more efficient way to log several issues one at a time.
Awesome. Yeah, I think so I touched on this in the last one, but right now there is kind of a workaround where you can drag your comments in, like your multiple choice comment from the informational area into defects and create a multiple choice defect. But there are some limitations like that. Like when you check a comment, it doesn't automatically add a certain description. We are looking to add, like I mentioned, a multiple choice defect option. But for right now, I think, again, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear it was you who's done that in the past, where you drag those through and then you actually have been using that.
Yeah, so that is definitely an option. Basically, you create the information section narrative, and then you do drag it down into your defect section, and that will give you the option to be able to have a multiple choice. I will say on V10, I am not a fan of how it displays, and I am a V10 user. And so I have gone away from using that just because the way it displays isn't as optimal as it did in Legacy. So yeah, but the option is there. I'm just very picky on how my stuff displays.
That makes sense. Well, actually, if you want to send me that, Chris, I can definitely take a look at it because we want that to work equally as well on both. So I appreciate it. Cool.
All right, great. Next one, actually one that we've been asked a few times in the chat is, how do I get V10?
Of course. So we can send out information on this afterwards. There is a link that you use to download it. So you can do that either through the Play Store or on Apple. You need an app called Test Flight. Both of them are really easy to get. And then you just have to make sure when you schedule your inspections, you're scheduling them as V10. When you hit plus new inspection or add an inspection with the calendar, there's an option at the bottom. And then in settings, reporting tools, you can also hit default to V10 in there, and that will schedule all of your inspections as V10. I think it'd be great after the webinar if we could just include that in the recording. We can send out that article so that everyone has access to that information.
Yes, I was just going to say, we will send detailed instructions on exactly how to get started with it if you haven't yet after the recording. So keep an eye out for that in our webinar resources that we'll email out to everyone.
Awesome. Next one, Michael's asking, does global search work when you are offline? No cell signal.
Yes, that's it.
All right. Let's see here. We had a few people asking, and we'll just point this out, asking to see if we could kind of show the app and working within the app. To be perfectly honest, we did not do that today, and we will work on trying to find the best way to do that so it looks nice on y'all's screen. So thank you for that feedback. Let's see here. Chris, do you have a copy of your hybrid inspection report available? And you can pop your camera on too, Chris, when you answer this.
So yes, that'll be available. It's going to be part of my overall Spectora Mastery program that is very close to being done. It'll be a part of that. So, but I will be also mentoring people on the back end as well. So if people just reach out to me, there's things that I can help people with because that's what I'm all about. So
awesome. What's the best way to reach out to you, Chris?
You can email me at InspectorTV. Excuse me. I got caught off guard with that question. I will post, just comment on a YouTube video and I'll get back with you. That's the easiest way right now.
All right, perfect. Steven, I think we mentioned this, but this is recorded. We're going to send the recording out tomorrow with resources as well. Let's see here. For Julie, she's asking, how do those tiles look for the end user? I'm not sure on what point that came in, about 18 minutes in. Not sure if you guys remember where you were at.
Was that the titles? It might have been the titles when we're talking about optimizing them. The global search. So the titles will show to the end user as they are typed in. So the end user, we don't have like a friendly display title versus another one. I don't know if anyone's run into any issues with that, but the titles will show to the user as you type them in. That's basically the answer in that, but normally it's not a problem. Chris, do you have any comment there?
Yeah, so that it's not a problem, and what you said is accurate. I am a big pusher on having your titles tell them what the defect is. Like they should know what defect is just off your title and not have to go into your narrative. So that's just a hint on my end.
Yeah, great tip. James is wondering, as a manager of a multi-inspector firm, when will you add the ability to put recurring events on the calendar?
That is officially in the plan. So we do have a calendar that is in beta, but it's not actively being developed. That's something that's coming up. Recurring events is in the plans for that, and I'll keep y'all posted on the timeline there.
All right, great. A couple more asking about Chris's template, which we answered. Using the V10 app search function and selecting a defect, adding a photo, etc. For some reason, it does not mark the section as having a defect unless I go back and select defect at the top of that section.
Yes, so we don't have, for classic ratings, we don't currently have that set for global search in V10. That's something that we are planning to add, though. We have a ticket for it. It's just not something that's been taken care of quite yet. That is planned, though. So that's specifically in template settings. If you have an option called classic ratings, basically it works when you check a defect. It's supposed to check on the defect. That's not currently in V10, but it is something that will be added.
And then Chris is asking, can you show us where the auto-annotate is within the template?
So auto-annotate is not a setting in the template. Auto-annotate is a setting in the app. So I can't pull it up on Legacy immediately, but in the app, it is in, let me see, settings, media, and then it's the very bottom auto-annotate. I can just pop up my phone. I know it's not very obvious, but it's that bottom one there.
Awesome. Question about switching to V10. What happens to your past reports? How different is the format?
So nothing happens to your past reports. The reports look very similar. The app, again, has a very similar flow. I think it just takes a couple inspections to get that used to like the slightly different buttons and stuff. But your old apps, you can still edit them. You won't be able to edit them on the V10 app. You would need to use the V9 app to edit those or edit on the web. But old reports are fine. Nothing happens there. And V10 apps, reports will look very similar, if not identical, on the report side to it, with some added bonuses where, like in V10, you get to click through your camera, or on your file report, you can click through the photos on the gallery instead of having to click out and click on each individual one. You can scroll through them, which is a plus.
Awesome. Let's see here. Question from David. Where are the camera settings?
Camera settings. So camera settings are again in the app under photo settings. So on Legacy, I need to find out exactly where that sits. I can send that to you afterwards too, but basically it's in the app settings. So I actually pulled up Legacy. So it's in settings, it's under tools. You just click the three bars up on the top right corner, and then you hit settings on this little sidebar, and it's in tools where you can choose your preferred, photo settings where you can choose your preferred camera, save annotated photos to gallery, and then also you can check your quality on Legacy. In V10, again, it's also just in settings under media.
Awesome. David, another David, is curious, does the CYA camera save the photos to the report somewhere or just to the camera roll?
So CYA just saves to the camera roll. That's basically, they're nowhere in the report, they're nowhere that the client can see. It's just something that you keep for your own records. Some inspectors will upload that into like a Dropbox file or something for each inspection, or some other format, where others do find ways to display it in the report by just putting them in a comment and then unchecking that comment so it doesn't display actually in the report, but the photos are still stored in the editor. But for the CYA, just your gallery.
Awesome. And Olivia, could you stop sharing the screen? We can just have our heads. Let's see here. Is there a set or predetermined resolution to the CYA photo option?
Not that I know off the top of my head. I know on Legacy, it goes through the exact same setting again as mentioned that you have in your or in the app, like the quality slider. In V10, it is the default quality, which is something that we keep high, just to make sure that's savable. But it's basically, again, whatever you have as your setting.
Hey,
Next,
James, real quick.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to make sure you saw this one. I answered it a couple times. There's been like 3 or 4 people that ask if there's extra cost for V10. I just want to make sure you get that one. And I was like, no, no, no.
Yes, thank you for that. That is definitely true. No extra cost. And yes, if you we highly encourage you to start using it. Um, let's see here. Is there a way to view the home inspection report as a PDF instead of the summary like the old reports before V10?
Yes, so we have the exact same summary PDF and full report PDF on V10, all the same options.
Okay, great. So here, why does some of my categories not do the floating defects function? Some do, but others keep their place on the original list.
Not positive on that one. If you want to shoot me an email at Megan@Spectora after this, I can take a peek. It only does that for defects, not informational comments or limitations. We have heard it potentially requested for limitations, so it's something that we are considering, but just keep in mind that unless it's in that list of defects, at this time, it doesn't actually float up.
And can I pop in and answer that too? They may be, some people are, questions are related to the web editor, the V10 web editor. And I can tell you that's been an ongoing kind of deal with the web editor, is that even though on the app it does bring it to the top when you go to the web editor, most of the time it does, but there's definitely plenty of times it does not move it to the top and you have to go down and search in your deal. So they may be discussing that as well. That's just, I think, part of the ongoing improving the V10 web editor experience, that everything is going to float to the top.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely, again, something we're going to be doing a ton of different improvements on the V10 web editor, so you can look forward to that being fixed shortly.
Let's see here. We got Mike asking a little bit of a long one. When taking photos with the app, it saves on the camera roll, but does not save in order. It gives them a unique name. Knowing my flow through the house, I know where to look for a photo or where a photo should be if I have to edit at home. The app does not follow my flow when naming the photo images. Like Chris, I have moved to taking photos with the phone's camera rather than with the app to keep my phone photos in order. Will the image savings in the app change?
I have to look into that one specifically, just to see what exactly that looks like. The naming should save in order as far as I know, but obviously if that's not working, we can definitely take a peek at that. So another one where if you want to reach out individually or I can reach out to you, either way, I think that'd be great to follow up on.
Wonderful. And just as we only have a couple moments for questions, I do want to get this out of the way for anyone who is hanging around. If we don't get to your question, please ask it either in the chat, or I think Megan did just put her email out there. You could also email me, Olivia@Spectora, and I'll get you connected with the right person. I just want to make sure if there's anything that we're not answering live here that y'all want answered, you have an avenue to get in touch with us and get answers to those questions. So that said, I think we do have a couple more moments for 1 or 2 more.
Great. Yeah, thanks for saying that, Olivia. Jason's asking, does Chris have a recommendation for generalizing defects for a single system?
I think he's specifically talking about the multiple choice options. And we kind of discussed that. Do you guys agree with that? He's kind of asking that question of how to have multiple defects for one system.
Yes,
Yeah.
but if we're getting that wrong, just please let us know.
Yeah.
Will you make the map functionality scroll in and out instead of us having to continuously click the minus sign on the map to scroll out?
I think that's in metrics. I believe it's the I'm actually not entirely sure what that one is I'm referring to. If it's in metrics, there's like a sheet that shows where your inspections are spread through the map. So maybe they're talking about that one, which I'd have to flag in our PM Josh, who works on metrics for. But if that's not it, let me know. I'm not absolutely sure where the map is. It could also be service areas. It could be the today thing on the dashboard. Lots of options for where that could be. So let me know.
All right, great. All right, well, we do have questions we didn't answer. So definitely, if you do have them and you still haven't gotten an answer through kind of the webinar itself or the Q&A, feel free to send an emails to either Olivia or Megan. Email addresses are megan@spectora.com and olivia@spectora.com. And Chris, I don't know if you have any last words for everybody. Thank you so much for being on this. But if you have anything you want to say or you want to plug your Inspector TV one more time, feel free.
No, I think everybody's got it. I've got a YouTube channel I'm going to be growing and helping other inspectors. And yeah, your support would be much appreciated for anybody who wants to take the time, leave a comment, ask a question. I'm going to be actively looking to help people. So the more you engage with me, the more I engage with you. And I very much appreciate Spectora having me on here. I'm very passionate about this software, as everybody has probably seen. And, you know, I'm an inspector in the field using it every day. I mean, I use it every single day. So I know the software very well. And I'm always looking to help people with it. So yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Chris. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. We appreciate you coming and showing up and asking amazing questions always. So thank you so much for that. And we will see you at the next webinar, hopefully. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Val.